Hey, it's Super Bowl Sunday, and so glad that you joined us regardless tonight at OpenMicVO. Great to see you all here. Last I heard, it was 9-3. If anyone has an update, let me know. The Eagles are up 9-3. OpenMicVO is all about us getting together as a community to share stories and share knowledge and to both get and give advice and to collaborate on problems that participants might pose to the group. Tonight's topic is audiobooks. Is audiobooks as a genre a viable and profitable option for voice actors? Just a couple of ground rules. This group is about being positive and supportive of each other. There's going to be participants here tonight at all different levels of all different stages in their careers. But everyone here is a professional nonetheless, and let's make sure that everyone is treated professionally. To those of you who are new members of the voice acting community, welcome. Glad you're here, and there's no such thing as a silly question. So the rules are simple. Mute yourself, please, if you're not actively participating in the conversation at that moment. I don't want to discourage you from participation. Definitely unmute yourself if you've got something to add or if you've got a question to ask. But if you're not actively participating, in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom meeting screen, there's that little microphone icon. Just click it once, it mutes you, click it again, and you're unmuted. Second rule, be nice. Be nice to each other. And the third rule is just remember that we're recording and the recordings get posted to YouTube. So if you're going to mention anything that's sensitive or proprietary, please just keep that in mind, is that I don't have any control where it might end up after it hits YouTube. The episode tonight's brought to us once again by Voicezam.com, and we're happy to have Voicezam's creator, Bob Merkel, is with us tonight, and he's going to take us on the tour, a tour of the Voicezam player, and answer any questions that our participants tonight might have. Honestly, Voicezam is so much more than just a player. It's a complete marketing machine built specifically for the voiceover professional. Many of our participants tonight may be familiar with the Voicezam player, which showcases your demos in an engaging way, and it keeps buyers listening longer. It also has interactive add-on features for email and video and auditions and search engine optimization. Voicezam covers all these angles of improving your marketing outreach. Voicezam also offers analytics showing which of your reads in your demo are getting the most plays, which ones are being quickly skipped over. You can use all of this information to increase the odds of you getting booked. Tonight, Bob's going to discuss some of the basics, the player itself. He's going to talk about keeping things fresh and current on your demo, which is a challenge right now, but it becomes much easier when you're using Voicezam because it doesn't fit into this 1-minute format thing. And Bob's going to tell us all about that. So for example, if you've got a great read from an older demo that didn't make the cut for your newest demo, but you still really liked it, well, there's no reason why you can't have that available on your Voicezam player. And he's, again, going to tell us all about that. Have you recently finished a VO project you're super excited about? Expand your basic demo, again, by adding it to the Voicezam player. So any questions you might have for Bob, jot them down as we are talking about audiobooks, and he'll be glad to answer them at the break. So let's get started. Once you see that you are unmuted, please feel free to ask the first question and get us started. Tonight is all about audiobooks, remember. If you're not going to start speaking right away, just remember to mute yourself in the lower left-hand corner. And this does take me a moment to get through here, so I apologize for that. Once again, when you see that you are unmuted, if you want to be the first person with a question, get us started tonight.
Hi, this is Blair in Culver City.
Blair in Culver City, how are you?
Hi, just fine. I'm not sure if this is too technical, but I was at a workshop where we talked about audiobooks and using Twisted Wave specifically to kind of insert the half second or the second and a half between the different parts. And someone shared like a really great time-saving hack that I now can't remember. It's something about having, I think, those seconds saved as something, and you can bring them in really quickly. Does anyone that work with Twisted Wave know what I'm talking about? Because I don't even know how to find it on YouTube or anything, because I don't remember what it's called exactly.
I think it's called a paste special.
Oh, yes, that sounds familiar. Okay.
Yeah, because you can save a certain amount of room tone and you can paste it into a gap. But I think it's paste special, and it saves it in a special place in your what is it? I can't remember exactly what the term is now.
Your clipboard.
Clipboard, yeah, and the clipboard.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Something about the clipboard. Thank you, guys. Now I can find it better. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, James.
You are welcome.
Who else has a question tonight about audiobooks?
Hello. This is Anthea. Can
Hello,
you hear me okay? Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing? Can you hear okay? I'm very remote. I'm on a remote small little iPad thing. I have a question regarding books. I've been doing audiobooks. I'm very excited. But I've run into a glitch with marketing things that are books that aren't bought frequently. I did a religious self-help book, and a friend asked me to do her religious fiction book. And so I just have some questions about marketing things that are not quite mainstream, if there are any hints or clues of different ways. I've tried Audio Boom, which was helpful to some degree, but still having difficulty with that. So.
Okay, so you're looking for ideas on how to market these niche books outside of kind of the normal Amazon channels. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anyone have any ideas on, I know there's a few people on here tonight that have done some audiobooks. Any ideas on how to market? I know you get a certain amount of free codes, don't you, when you narrate an audiobook?
You have to ask for them.
They
used to give them to you automatically, but now you have to ask for them. So when your book finally gets published, you have to send a message to customer service for ACX or Audible and ask them for the codes now. And you'll get 25 codes.
So tell us, James, about these codes and what they're useful for. So, because there's some people here tonight that don't know what we're talking about. We're talking about these codes. Okay,
so if you do a book for ACX and after the book gets sent off to Audible and it actually gets published and it's online for download, you can ask, ACX will send you a message saying your book is now available for download. You send them, there's a link in the message that they send you, and you can send them a link to their customer service or whatever it is to ask for the codes, but you have to request them, and they'll give you a series of 25 codes that when you go on Audible, and they're only good for Audible. If you go on Audible and order a book, put it in your shopping cart, you skip the whole thing about, you know, signing into Audible and having the membership and all that kind of stuff, and you can use those codes for anything. The problem is that when you get the codes, there's no guarantee that the people who get the codes from you are going to use it for your book. You can use the codes for any book. So if you're giving away codes, you're giving away a book. It might not necessarily be your book.
We don't necessarily have to tell people that, though, right?
Exactly, but I do. The other thing, too, is Jeffrey Kaffer, who is the guy who created Audiobook Boom, will tell you on the Facebook pages that he moderates that if you're a narrator, you're wasting your time trying to market, because that is the author's job. You're wasting your time and effort. Spend your time and effort narrating rather than trying to market yourself.
So So therefore, he would suggest you be fairly careful and fairly specific about the books you and the authors you hook yourself up with. Then is that the case?
Right. You want to, of course, try to get a quality book and narrate a well-written book and all that kind of stuff. But it's really up to the authors, the publishers, to market the books. I don't want to speak for Jeffrey, but everything that I've seen about that is, as a narrator, you are wasting your time trying to market.
Okay.
That sounds something like Jeffrey would say, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know him well, but only by reputation.
For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to meet Jeffrey Kafer, he's quite the character. He's a bit of a curmudgeon in a loving way, but he's a bit of a curmudgeon. So,
but what I would encourage people to do is to go on Facebook and join as many of the narrator and audiobook groups as you can, just to get an idea of what's going on out there, because there's a heck of a lot of help from people, authors, rights holders, narrators, people who do this full time.
James, thank you so much. I'm a consumer of audiobooks. Are these 25 codes just like a perquisite that Audible gives to narrators? Is this in addition to, whatever the rate of pay is? It is just like a...
Well, when you're narrating an audiobook, you're either going to do it as a per finished hour contract, or you're going to do it as a royalty share contract, or there's something called a combination of both, and those things are kind of negotiated between you and the rights holder. But yeah, once you've done a book and it's been published on Audible, you through ACX, you request the codes from ACX, and you'll get 25 codes for free downloads.
Huh. So this may kind of...
It's not necessarily pay. I sort of take it as that because I don't have that many friends. So I use the codes to download books for myself because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Yeah. And if you're narrating audiobooks, listen to audiobooks.
Absolutely.
How many books are you up to now, James?
I'm working on my 45th right now. I'm actually working on 3 at the same time, which I do not recommend. It's a bit of a headache and a bit of an emotional nightmare. At one time, I was working on 2 very, very long books. One was 16 hours long, and the other one was 22 hours long.
Wow.
Yeah, one was a fiction book, and one was a nonfiction book. And my eyes are bigger than my stomach. I just kept accepting contracts was my problem. I couldn't turn anybody down. Now I'm being a little bit more selective. But I sort of flip-flopped between those 2 so I didn't get locked into boredom narrating one thing or the other. So I'd spend one day doing the nonfiction book, and I'd spend another day doing the fiction book, and that way I didn't get bored. But I don't recommend that.
So James, do you think that audiobooks are really the holy grail for voice actors? Like, I know that there are coaches out there. I'm thinking of, what's his name out in California, out in Los Angeles? David H. Lawrence the 17th.
Right.
Who has an online course that you can take that
yes.
he claims that audiobooks are one of the last real profitable areas for voice actors.
You are not going to get rich doing audiobooks, not unless you're somebody like Scott Brick or David H. Lawrence the 17th or Sean Allen Pratt or somebody who is established in that world. It takes a long time to get established and to get a reputation. I would love to be working for the big publishing companies. I'm not. I'm working through ACX right now almost exclusively because I'm working my way up toward that, but it takes a long time, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And it is the most work for the least amount of money in voiceover.
I can tell you, I have narrated like one audiobook in my life, and it was a 26-hour monster called The Law in American History. It was dry and it was long, and I absolutely agree with you. it is unlike any other type of work that we do as voice actors. Even long-form e-learning narrations are maybe 2 hours long at most. You start getting into a 20-hour plus book, and it's a lot of work to ensure that the way you sound on Tuesday is the way you sound the following Thursday. And
exactly. I mean, your booth sounds different. Your depending on, your sleeping habits, you sound different depending on if you have a cold. I mean, there's one rights holder that I work for that cautions you, don't narrate if you have a cold or you got a postnasal drip or something, because you sound different, and it does sound different. That rights holder happened to give me my first job, and it was a 16-hour book, the 21st century version of Darwin's On the Origin of Species, and I had no friggin' clue of what I was doing. I didn't have a clue. I went up to Pat Fraley at a thing before I started narrating at one time. There was an event out in Brooklyn that I met him at, and I said, I'm scared to death. And he said, listen, I'm dyslexic. My first book was Tom Sawyer, and it was 18 hours long, and he was frightened out of his mind. His advice to me was, just do it.
I have a quick question here, and this is really fascinating to listen to. And I have to tell you, I have the greatest admiration for VO people who do books, because I think it takes an incredible amount of discipline and patience, and it's akin to an analogy between a sprinter and a long distance runner. I mean, again, I have the greatest admiration. My question is, I don't do audiobooks. The longest I do is just sort of e-learning. My question is that those of you out there who do books, how doesn't that tear you when you get other auditions in that are like for, you can audition for this amount of money or a commercial audition or whatever. And I mean, how do you balance your work? Do you do audiobooks, or do you do audiobooks and you're doing the other stuff too? Do you bounce back and forth? Or I'm just kind of curious how many out there do nothing exclusively but audiobooks, or how many out there do like commercial auditions and other stuff involved along with their books, and how do you juggle that? Because that just make me crazy. I'd be doing a book, and then I'd see these auditions come in, and it's like, ooh, the shiny thing, gotta go do that, and then it would be really hard to go back to the audiobook. And
how long does
I'll just shut up now.
How long does it take you to cut an audition?
Oh, like half an hour at the most.
At the most, yeah. I mean, depending on what the audition is for. If it's a commercial audition, I mean, you should be able to knock that out in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the book. I do that all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm basically locked in my booth 5 days a week, 6-8 hours a day.
No.
And if the auditions come in, I'll take a break and I'll cut the audition, and then I'll go back to the book. But yeah, you have to juggle the time. People who have full-time jobs, real jobs, as we say.
Real world jobs.
Yeah, real world jobs. I've been an actor for 40 years, and that's what I know. That has been my job for 40 years. So I haven't had a real job in a long time. But this is what I do. And you have to, if you're going to do audiobooks, you have to put aside at least 2 hours a day to concentrate on it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you're doing the ACX thing, and when you win a thing on ACX, you will get a deadline, and you can actually negotiate that deadline. I have had to do that because, again, my eyes are bigger than my stomach, and I take on too many projects. Yeah. And I say, well, I'm in the middle of something right now, but if you can give me a liberal deadline on this, I'd be happy to do your book. So, and I've done that, and people are more than accommodating. They want their stuff done. Mm-hmm.
So the question I have is like, let's say I wanted to, like, it's kind of like the hokey pokey, you put your toe in first, and so my question is that let's say I wanted to try and do a children's book, because I love doing characters, and I thought, well, maybe if I start small with just like a little child's book, do you go to ACX and say, this is what I'm interested in, or how do you How do you stick?
Well, you have to create a profile on A6 first, but there are different categories, and you can put filters in after you make your profile and filter all those things out. I mean, I like to do a lot of detective novels and spy things and all that kind of stuff, but I also like to do nonfiction. So I have my profile set up to where I filter. And they also have age ranges, accents. If you're bilingual or anything like that, if you can do Spanish, you can do different languages. You can,
James.
Yes.
Just for the benefit of people here who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, what's the ABCs of ACX?
The ABCs of ACX. Create your profile. Put up a couple of samples. To begin with.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, you will sign up. You'll sign into your profile page. You'll have to put either like your bank account or something like that, because you get paid through ACX, and you can have it direct deposited into whatever account that you want it. But you have to fill that kind of stuff out. You have to fill out tax information, all that kind of stuff. It's totally legitimate. There are also other services like Findaway Books is another one. There's a couple other places that you can go, but ACX is pretty much the big one. They're owned by Audible, which is owned by Amazon. And you create your profile, you put up a few samples. Do not do things that are recognizable. Again, it's the same thing with commercials. Don't narrate, 3 minutes of Harry Potter. Jim Dale has a lock on Harry Potter, so you're not going to be doing Harry Potter ever. So pick some things that you're interested in. There's no better way to narrate something than to narrate something that's of interest to you.
Got it.
It's like I chose the Darwin thing for my first book because what a student is going to want to read that. It's easier to plug me in and listen to it and absorb the information, while you're driving to class or whether you're walking along campus or something like that. Audiobooks are really, really big. Unfortunately, they don't pay a lot.
Hey, James. James, this is Gary Lewis. I have a question for you.
Okay. I'm hijacking your webinar.
No. Just a quick question.
Awesome job, man.
You need punch and roll for audiobooks, and
yes.
I am with Audacity, which does not have punch and roll. What do you use as your software, or what is?
All right, this is my commercial. Reaper. It's at www.reaper.fm. Not .com, not .net, Reaper.fm. Make sure you download that and look at everything. You have to download the SWS extensions. I give classes on Reaper at the SAGVO lab in New York City. I love Reaper. Reaper is in my book, other people will argue with me, and they do, I will argue that it is the nearly perfect tool for voiceover, because you can strip it down specifically for voiceover. You don't need MIDI. You don't need to do instruments. You don't need all that other stuff. I've completely stripped mine down just for audiobook work.
Well, now that I have Audacity down pat, it's time to move on, I suppose.
Yeah, Audacity is a good tool, but it's limited. The biggest limitation, two biggest limitations that it has, you can't do punch and roll. You can do David H. Lawrence's 17th stair-step method, which is a lot of work.
Right.
Or it has destructive editing. So if you've made a mistake and you go back and try to correct that mistake, and you keep on making the mistake, but you liked what you did before, you have to hit undo to get back to it. Whereas with something like Reaper or Pro Tools or I don't think Twisted Wave is destructive, but OCEN Audio, OCEN Audio is another free program, and it has an innate punch and roll with it. There are videos on YouTube that you can find out about that kind of stuff. My friend Stephen Gonzalez at Stephen Gonzalez Voiceovers on YouTube has a series of videos specifically for Reaper and voiceover in both PC and Mac. And he also covers punch and roll.
Yeah, he's incredibly generous. I mean, all of you guys have been incredibly generous, and the guys behind Reaper should be paying you all a commission as well, because you
60 bucks. It's a $60 piece of software.
Yeah, it's
you pay $60 for a license fee.
It's an incredibly powerful. It's every bit as powerful to those of you out there who are familiar with names like Pro Tools or Adobe Audition. It's
Studio One, you know, on and on and on and on. Reaper is a very, very, very powerful DAW. 90% of which you will not use for voiceover.
But the difference between Reaper and Pro Tools is that Reaper is so customizable is that you can remove a lot of this stuff. You can hide a lot of this stuff that you don't need.
Case in point, there is a tempo change slider at the bottom of Reaper. I inadvertently, when I was doing the Darwin book, I inadvertently slid my mouse over there and used my wheel mouse and changed the tempo. It changed the speed. I started sounding like this, and I didn't know why. I took it off the screen so I'd never do that again.
Very good. I appreciate it. Thank you much.
Speak of the devil, Stephen Gonzalez just joined. He just logged in. Hello, Stephen.
Howdy, how y'all doing?
Hi, Stephen. I plugged your website.
I appreciate every time you do. Seriously, it's actually a lot of work. I'll be honest. Each one of those videos represents probably about 3 to 4 hours worth of work. And you know, because it's Windows and Mac, there are different ways to install applications on a Mac versus Windows. There's different keystroke commands and all that good stuff. But like I said, you know, I posted, I'm actually working on commonalities right now. First, I'm going to be doing some markers and regions videos. And then I'm actually helping people to get to Reaper. And I field a lot of questions from them. And one of the most common questions is it boils down to reprogramming your brain. Like something in Audacity, for example, when you take out 3 seconds of audio, you're actually taking out 3 seconds of the underlying audio. Whereas in Reaper, you're not really doing that. And it's kind of confusing for some people. And I'll be working on a video with that. Hopefully next week or so, it'll be coming out, the 3 videos I mentioned. For markers, regions, and the reprogramming your brain.
Right, because what you're seeing on the screen is a representation of the WAV file. You're not exactly seeing the file itself, and you're not snipping anything away from the file. You're just snipping a little bit of something that's visual.
Exactly. And I call those media items, I call them little windows, and you can move those windows around. It's not changing what you're seeing. It's just changing the window that you're doing. Whereas with destructive DAWs, you're actually affecting the underlying audio. And I'll have a 3D representation, a graphic, and all that stuff to show y'all what that is. And then on the docket, I've got somewhere around 40 or 45 more videos that I have that I've kind of thought of doing, complete with effects, preferences, workflow. And I'm going to be calling like this one about the reprogramming your brain inspired videos, because they've been inspired by people who have asked me questions about Reaper and how to move to Reaper and things like that. It's something that's completely unplanned. But yeah, it's absolutely fun. And this is my way of giving back to the community that's given me so much. I have been a musician for a very, very long time. I've also been on stage, during for musicals and things like that. And I could tell you, based on that, the voiceover community is one of the most giving communities ever that I have, artistic communities that I've ever been involved with. And again, this is just my way of, some people will say, it's maybe a little too much, but how can you repay a community for giving me a way of life that some other people can only dream about? I go in and I create things, and so do we all when we go into the booth. And it's just an amazing feeling to come out on the other side of things and go, you know what, I didn't know I could do this, but you know what, I did it. So that's my way of giving back.
A couple of quick questions. So once again, how much is Reaper for those people who are interested?
Okay, Reaper has a split point. If you make less than, I think it's $25,000, it's $60. I mean, come on, $60. If you make more than $25,000 or whatever the price break is, it's $250.
But to be fair, they have no idea knowing how much money you're making.
No, it's a complete honor system.
It's complete honor system, and that's one.
And the other thing too is you can use it for 60 days and not pay a thing, and just play around with it. It's a non-crippled, completely functional version. Yeah. Whereas if you went with Pro Tools, or if you went with Studio One, or if you went with another one, there will be features that you won't be able to do.
Yeah, like if you can record 30 seconds at a time, or you can't save what you're doing, or things like that. Whereas, Kakos, I say in my video, Kakos is so confident that you're going to like their product that they're willing to give you a full-blown version for 60 days. I mean,
and once again, it's Reaper.fm. Stephen, where do people find you on YouTube?
YouTube/Stephen Gonzalez VO.
And is there a tip jar? Is there some way that we can, as a community, kind of contribute towards the time you've been spending?
Actually, I'm looking at Patreon right now. And I've also looked at PayPal Me, or what is it? Pay Me Pal, whatever it is.
Well, you let us know when there's some sort of vehicle that we can use to contribute even just $1 or $2 for a cup of coffee back, because you certainly deserve it for all of what you've given to the industry on those Reaper tutorials.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's just my way of giving back to a community that's given me so much. But I appreciate it, though.
Fantastic. I want to change gears for a minute, and I want to invite Bob Merkel in from Voicezam. And Bob is going to give us a few minutes of tutorial about the Voicezam product. And we'll open up the floor if anyone has any questions about Voicezam. We're going to take about 10 or 12 minutes to talk about Voicezam here. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
It's going well, Graham. Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Great to be with you again on your show. And I'm just listening in here and learning tons. James and David, you guys are pouring out great information on this audiobook industry, or as I call it, the grinders. You guys are grinders. That is hard work. And I know it doesn't pay very well, so you must love it. And I wish you all the best and keep moving up to those big publishers. So hats off to you guys. Well done. I wanted to talk a little bit about Voicezam tonight. I usually jump right into a demonstration, and it occurred to me that many people don't know how Voicezam came to be. First of all, with a raise of hands, no, I'm just kidding. I guess we can't raise our hands here. I'm hoping that most of you have heard of or know about Voicezam. It's a audio player that has been designed from the ground up for voiceover demos. And why that's important is, I'll show you in a second. So I was a systems engineer doing lots of computer systems in the automation industry. And I did work for Timex. I did work for Coca-Cola. I did work for major brands and setting up systems, did some coding, and loved it. But got a call from an advertising executive who had seen my film work. I did a lot of film work back in the college days and such, and he knew me and knew I was a creative, so he said, why don't you come into advertising? I thought, okay. So I took a left-hand turn, and my career went into advertising. And I was the person sitting on the other side of your demo listening, hour after hour after hour. I was a grinder, except in a different way. I was grinding through your demos. And it was really frustrating. And I'm gonna tell you why. When you listen to a demo, what you hear is the first read, and that's the first segment of your demo. The demo is set up as multiple little segments, right? And we put them back to back in a single audio file. Well, let me tell you what it sounds like, what it works like from a buyer's point of view. They play your demo, they hear the first read, and they say, okay, this person's voice can work with the project that I have in my head. But they don't necessarily care for the first read. And so they want to skip to the next read, and there's the problem. They can't, because it's a linear audio file. There's no skipping. So time went on, and I just was frustrated. I enjoyed the work. I certainly enjoyed the community. Enjoyed the creative part of it. Did not like advertising, which was probably a bad idea to get into anyway. Didn't think, I was young, didn't think too deeply about it. So about 3 years into it, I left advertising, went back to systems. And I was left, though, with an idea. And the idea was, why aren't voiceover audio demos played back like albums and tracks? Because then the buyer, the producer, gets a chance to hear your first track. And if they don't care for it, and that happens all the time, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, they can skip to the next one and to the next one. I'm going to share my screen and show you what that looks like. So the thing you're looking at here is the Voicezam player. And we're looking at a talent named Bill Ratner. He's a big talent in LA. He does a lot of trailers. And we're looking at a demo. It's a voiceover demo. In fact, it's his commercial demo. And so here's the first read.
This Veterans Day,
Actually, that's the last read. Let me go to the first read.
Ted, he's your average high-end real estate.
Okay, so maybe I like Bill's voice, but maybe that's just not the read I'm looking for. So what do? I skip.
Coming this fall, a family support.
Otherwise, I would have to listen through this whole thing and wait for the next one. And yes, a buyer could skip on the little audio, but it's very frustrating because they want to hear the opening, they want to hear the close, they want to hear the middle, they want to hear the complete read as you intended it. So Voicezam opens up your demo. You put a lot of work into your demo, a lot of money into your demo, I know. And you want to showcase it in the best way possible. And so you can put it in a linear player, or you can open it up, as I say, in the Voicezam player, where now the buyers, your listeners, can engage with it. So they'll A/B. They'll say, well, do you like this one, or do you like this one? And they'll do it that way. Each read is downloadable individually. They can then take that to their client. You can download the full demo. And so that's really the essence of what Voicezam is. It starts with the player. There's much more. We have analytics built into it. We have ways of sending out your demos as the player in an email. But this is what Voicezam is all about. Now, let me tell you a key thing about this. We know, or we've been told, that the demo needs to be how long? Around 1 minute, right? Let me show you why that's a misunderstanding. It needs to be 1 minute. Who, by the way, what angel of our industry came up with the 1 minute timeline there? The problem is what's that?
J. Michael Collins.
Well, he knows about Voicezam and uses it, so he knows the secret I'm going to tell you. So let's say that each one of the, in fact, I'm going to go over to Bill's trailer over here.
December 15th.
And let's say that each one of these, let's see how many he has. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so he's got a ton. That's his demo. Now, if you took that demo and you stretched that out like an audio file, it's probably going to be about 6 minutes long. That's insane. The industry would tell you that's insane. But look what happens on Voicezam. I hear his first read. It could be 30, 60 seconds. And if I don't care for it in the first 4 to 7 seconds, I skip it. So what does that mean? That means the producer can just keep going through all the reads on your player until they find some voicing that matches the one they're hearing in their head. Why is that important? When a buyer is listening to a demo and they like the voice, what they're trying to determine is how much am I going to have to work with this person, with this talent, to get them to the place where I need them to be for my project. So what happens on Voicezam is buyers just keep looking for the closest read that matches their project. Then many times, 62% of our clients get booked right off their demo without an audition. And the reason is they can say, I want it to be just like Coen Brothers' Hail Caesar, only I want it a little faster, a little more moody, or something like that. And so the talent can listen to that read, know exactly what the producer is talking about, and then tweak it. So that's the miracle. We break the 1 minute demo, and I watch the analytics, which are playback clicks all the time. People are going past a minute, past 2 minutes, sometimes 3, 4, 5 minutes listening to demos. And that's it. I mean, there's much more to it than that, but I thought I'd spend a little time talking about the essence, I guess, of what Voicezam is and how it came to be, a frustrated buyer. So I'll hand it back to you, Graham, and maybe there's some time for Q&A.
So really, people don't end up with one 1-minute demo. Now they have as many 7-second or 8-second demos as they want.
Well, or as many 30-second. Let me tell you why. So let's say I put a full 30-second spot as my first read. If the buyer doesn't like it, they skip it. But if they do like it, and this is so important, they hear the beginning. They hear how you hit the brand. They hear the ending consonants, the breath control. They hear the close. It's all in that 30 seconds. So what's happening now is you and your demo producer are kind of guessing what you think buyers are going to want to hear. Well, why not give them all of it? The whole 30-second or 60-second spot. It doesn't matter because the Voicezam player was designed to feature each one of your separate multi-clickable reads as its own little standalone voicing.
Very cool. Now, tell us about how has the uptake been with the casting directors, with the agents? Have you gotten some feedback from some of these people, and how is it being accepted?
It's being accepted. I get most of my feedback through the talent. I don't necessarily call up a buyer and say, hey, try this player. They don't have time. I wouldn't have time. I tell them, yeah, whatever. But they see the Voicezam player. Now, at first, it's a little different, but once they grab onto it, they get it, they love it, they want more of it. And what's interesting, too, is I'll show you a website here that's that will really help. My friend Mo Rock here, she has a website. So this is what she did. She's got buttons over here and the player over here. And what this does is it serves the two, I guess, demographics of people that are coming at her website. There's the old guys like me who are looking for the genres. You click on, say, narration. Okay. So the player plays the narration. This they're comfortable with. The millennial types, the younger people, they'll jump right on here because this looks like iTunes or their phone or the music player that they've been using forever. It's a perfect analogy for them to get started quickly and understand it.
Fantastic, Bob. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Bob? If so, just jump on in and ask away.
Jump in.
I'm curious about pricing. I'm looking at Steve Gonzalez's site, for instance, and he has what looks like two players. I'm not sure what to call them, the size of a playing card. Do you pay separately for each one of those players? So for instance, if I have an audiobook company and I want a player for a children's book, a player for a mystery book, and a player for medical narration, would those all be separate players, or does that all fall under a single fee?
Excellent. And this is William speaking?
Yes, sir.
Excellent question. Thanks for asking. Here's how we look at it. If your brand is a single persona, and in that persona, that's you're doing audiobooks, you're doing everything you do is under one persona. What I mean by one email address, one name, that's how you're branding yourself. You can put as many players as you want with the different genres. And you can have as many pages. So on this page, we could feature, she has her narration. If I click down here, she shows you, well, there's her narration. Let me go one more. Here's her animation. She does this. She breaks it up into pages. So you can have unlimited players on your whole website if you want. However, some people, one of their personas is their audiobook persona. They brand themselves that way. The other one is their commercial persona because the two don't necessarily meet, right? So they need to have a license for the one persona and the other. So that would be two licenses. Does that answer your question?
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you so much.
So, Bob, it comes down to how many email addresses are registered, right? So if I've got Graham Spicer audiobook.com, then that's one license. And if it's grahamspicercommercials.com, then that's a second license.
Yeah, I mentioned that casually. It's likely that you're going to have different email addresses, but if you don't, we can still set it up so that you have two players, both leading back to the same email.
Very good. Cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Bob?
I had a question about, I'm using the Voicezam on my website, and I have a narration demo and then my audiobook demos all on the same player, and I just have them like up at the top where it's flipping from animation to click to play another demo.
Sure.
How is that the best use of that, or should I have separate players for each one?
Here's the concept of, and it's a great question. I'm going to answer it two ways. First of all, the concept of the Voicezam player is a jukebox. So when you go into a bar, I frequent there all, no, not usually, but I mean sometimes. You don't go to the country music jukebox and then to the rock jukebox and then to the jazz jukebox. The jukebox holds all the different genres. It's the same thing with the Voicezam player. So I recommend you do something like Mo did. You would have, did you say, Paula, audiobook and commercial?
Yes,
Okay.
narration.
Or narration. All right, so does she do, okay, so let's say one of these is audiobook. If somebody comes here, they see audiobook, they can click audiobook. If they want narration, they can click narration. But it's all held in the same player.
Okay.
And Bob, there's a drop-down menu there as well, right?
Yes, there is. I forgot to mention that. So when I click here, here's all your demos. So if I click automotive, there's her automotive demo. Same thing. She does video as well. We do video. That's an add-on feature. We don't have to talk about that, unless you want to. But yeah, so here's the thing. When you send out your player, you're sending out your whole lineup with the first demo that you want the recipient to see stage first. So let's say you sent out, somebody said, hey, do you do narration? It's like, sure I do. So, well, send me your demo. Well, you send them the player. When the player plays, they'll hear your narration demo, but they can always go back, because Voicezam cross-sells all your work. They can always go back and hear your other great demos that you can feature. And then you have the contact information as well. This is your representation, all your social media. There's a direct link on here as well. When I designed this, I wanted to look like a little handheld, self-contained repertoire of you, the talent. That's what the intent was. Does that answer your question, Paula?
Yeah, it does. That really helps. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Fantastic. Well, Bob, would you agree to hang out for a few minutes at 9 o'clock just in case there's any other questions people have?
Absolutely. People are putting up the score here, so I'll just look at that. I really don't have a horse in the game, so, but I'm always rooting for the underdog. Thank you so much for having me here, and of course I'll be here. So if anybody has any questions, I'll stay all night if you want.
Actually, just before you run, Bob, Pat posted a question in the Q&A box. What's the process of taking the demo, like your 1 minute produced demo, and converting it to Voicezam?
Okay, when you sign up for Voicezam, we convert the first one for you. Now, if you want to pay us to do the rest of them, we'll do them for $29.95 each. But Twisted Wave is built into Voicezam. So you take your existing, I call it a composite demo, you load it into Voicezam, or load it into Twisted Wave, which is right in Voicezam. You drop some markers where the transitions are, you say done, and we convert that to reads, and you got your demo all broke up. So, and that's free. There's nothing to that. So if you don't mind putting the work in, you can do it for free. And it's not a lot of work, maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not even a lot of work. It's a fairly straightforward process, right?
But for some people, time is money, and we'll do it for them if they want. And we turn it around probably within an hour. Great question. Thank you.
Very cool. Okay, well, let's segue back to audiobooks. Spend the last 10 minutes talking about audiobooks. Bob has graciously said he'll hang around after 9 o'clock in case there's anything more. Who's got a comment, a question about the audiobook business? Would be happy to hear what everyone has to say. And if you're shy and you don't want to open your mic and tell it to us live, feel free to jot it into the Q&A box or into the chat box. Either way is perfectly fine.
Hey, Graham, I have one more thing that does relate to audiobooks.
Yeah, please.
A lot of times, what's really important, and as a buyer, this is important. You know how our commercial demos are, they're seamless. They run one to the other and there's no transitions, right? it's always great if people don't know this, to always leave about a 2 or 3 second silence gap at the end of each audiobook clip. And why that's important is that the buyer's listening, or whoever is listening, it just gives them a little emotional space and separation between that audiobook and the next one, because you're really jumping to a whole completely different subject or whatever. So just a little tip there in case you're not doing that. Give your buyers a break and put those in.
So Bob, a question, is there a limit? Like sometimes if you're doing an audiobook demo, you might want to do 3, 4, 5 minutes sometimes of a book. Is there a limit to how long an individual clip is allowed to be in Voicezam?
Well, how about 7, 8, or 9, or 10? No, people are loading up. There's no limit on the number of players, demos, or reads. So if you want an audiobook clip that's 9, 10 minutes, go for it. That's fine on Voicezam.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
Right. I promise to stay out now. Thank you again.
Who else has a question about audiobooks? And Thea's asking, where are some other places that you can go to get audiobook work other than ACX? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Hi, guys. Wolf Williams from New York City.
Wolf, how are you tonight?
I am gravy. Life is good. Can't complain. My thing is usually commercials and narrations and stuff. But I recently went to That's Voiceover back last year, and I got introduced to a company called Learning Ally. Basically, they're an organization that they provide learning assistance materials for like disabled folk or people that have dyslexia or some sort of hindrance in their learning process. And one of the things that they say to the community, since the voiceover community is pretty giving, is if you want to volunteer, doing a book, and it doesn't have to be a long book, that's a way to, one, if you're new to doing audiobooks like I was, it's a way to put your toe in, as it were. And also when it's done, you now have a book under your belt.
Has anybody had any success in getting audiobook narrations from the more traditional online casting sites? I fairly frequently will see audiobooks listed on voice123.com as an example. Anybody out there have any thoughts on, any questions or any thoughts on the ability to get audiobook work from the more traditional online casting sites?
I have a question about that, Graham. Do they offer a per finished hour rate for most of those, or is it a royalty share?
Neither. Usually it's just a flat amount posted. So it's not unusual to see a book, and believe me, these aren't usually very big budget books, but it's not unusual to see a book posted for like $1,500 or something like that.
It's nothing to sneeze at, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, $1,500 if it's a 30 or 40,000 word book, yeah, it's not so bad. If it's 100,000 word book, it's not quite so fun. Anybody else have any experience with the traditional online casting sites and getting audiobook narration from them? Okay.
I'd like to ask a question about payments. If James is still there or anyone else, what's the ratio of finished hour payments to? Forgive me, I don't remember what you call the other standard.
Royalty share.
Royalty share. Thank you.
Yeah, James, you want to tackle that?
They're two different animals, really. Royalty share, you only make money if the book sells. A per finished hour is exactly what it says. It's you will spend a certain amount of time putting the book together. The really good pros, it's about a 3-to-1 ratio of recording to per finished hour. Mine would be something more to 6-to-1 or 7-to-1 because I'm not as good as some of those other guys are.
You're also a perfectionist.
Yeah, I tend to really edit the hell out of my books. So, and I do a lot of punch and roll because I make a lot of mistakes.
So my question is, in the marketplace, what is the ratio of those between those two? Do you find most of your work is finished hour, or?
I've done mostly royalty share.
Okay.
And I would love to get some per finished hour work, but the deadlines on that are going to be a lot more stringent. I mean, it's going to be quicker. They're going to expect you to get the book done at their pace rather than yours. So you really have to build up to something like that. But
also the percentage is pretty much like 90% royalty share to 10% per finished hour, at least from my experience. There's usually not that much in per finished hour even available on ACX.
Yeah, it's there aren't all that many. You will find them occasionally, but I mean, that's what it is. You get paid for the per finished hour, and then after you're done with the book, that's it. You get no more money. Royalty share, if the book sells, if you happen to do something like R.C. Bray did with The Martian, and that sells 100 million copies, and he's a very rich man right now, and he is very, very prolific. I recommend listening to his books a lot.
I have a quick question, and that is, has anyone out there who has a favorite book, let's say something that they really love or a particular writer, have they actually approached the writer directly? I mean, is that verboten? Or I'm just wondering if anyone's ever done that.
It happens, yes.
It's not verboten.
No, not by any means.
You can approach anybody or any genre. ACX is pretty much what I've used. Stephen J. Cohen has a site called Listen to a Book for those who produce in public domain. But there's nothing wrong with approaching an author and offering your services to them either.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
If I could jump in there. Listen to a Book is now Spoken Realms.
Oh, okay.
Great organization. Stephen's great.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi. How are you?
I'm looking at this. Anybody seen this findawayvoices.com?
Yep.
Has anyone used it?
Yes, many people have used them. Actually, I do not mean this as a plug for my podcast, but I do a podcast called the Audiobook Speakeasy, and I just spoke with Kelly Lytle and Will Dagus from Findaway. That's going to go up it should go up a week from tonight.
Rich, could you please post a link to your podcast in the chat box, and
yes,
it goes out to all attendees as well, not just to the panelists? Because believe me, we plug away, man, because I'm sure that's a really valuable resource. We'd like to all know about it.
Sure. Yeah. Let me get that out there right there. So I just in the chat window. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. That's perfect.
So I just posted in the chat window the link to the page on my website that is for the Audiobook Speakeasy. So right now there's only 10 episodes up. If it all works out, Kelly and Will be episode 12, and that'll be a week from tonight.
Fantastic. Well,
Findaway is good people. They are still relatively new in the business of doing something similar to what ACX does, but with some pretty specific differences. So there's a lot to be ironed out, but everybody that I've talked to there and other people that I've spoken with who have had experiences doing books with them, it's all pretty positive.
Fantastic. Well, with that comment, we really got to call it a night when it comes to audiobooks. I want to thank all of you. I hear there's a football game or something going on right now. I didn't realize that. For Big attendance tonight. Thank you all so much. And I also invite you to stick around if you have any further questions for Bob.